who want to be doctors, nurses, or dentists, and those students take anatomy and physiology, and we do a lot of the kind of stuff. So if you're like, this is awesome, when you are a senior, or maybe even a very ambitious junior, you should take anatomy and physiology at the high school. You get college credit for it, super fun. So that's why I'm here. You guys, your teachers invite me to come in and show you the stuff and talk to you about it and see if you're interested. It's kind of nice because there's some distance, but in the end, for students who are interested, but certainly not mandatory, we'll put the specimens down at the bottom of the stage and you guys can walk by and really look at everything up close. So I am, oh, that's cool. All right, so I'm going to turn on my screen and show you the pigs. So I'm just going to pause for a minute for you guys to just feel your feels. Oh. Yeah, there you go. Oh, no, not this, not that one. Where's the big one? There you go, maximize. Okay, so we're going to look at lighting. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the abdomen of this pig. So let's talk about the pigs for a second and how we get them and what, like, how they ended up here. There we go. So these pigs are called fetal pigs. And fetal means that they were not born. They were not piglets ever. They were never born like you think of that. And so they are, what happened was that their mothers, first of all, here's my first question. Who here eats bacon? Yeah, a good portion of people. So bacon comes from a pig. And these pigs are a kind of breed of pig that is actually really usually used a lot for things like bacon and sausage. And what happened is that their mothers went to become food, went to be slaughtered, and because of some poor animal husbandry techniques, were pregnant at the time. So when they went to slaughter them, they, put them open, and they're like, oh, piglets, fetal pigs. And they're not alive enough to live outside their mother's bodies. They're not alive. So rather than throw them in the trash, they take them and they sell them to a company that preserves them like pickles, and they end up being teaching resources. Does that make sense? So ethically, it's no different than eating a piece of bacon on your bacon, egg, and cheese. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's like, except for you're learning, if your bacon could teach you something, it's like your bacon teaching you something. Okay, so you guys all have a worksheet, I think, yeah? Why don't you grab that bad boy out, because we are going to, I will help you answer some of your questions. Yours have letters on them, and we're not going to go over all the letters. Over here. There we go. Okay, so what we're looking at here, and I'm going to orient this, although you guys did see it slide in. Zoom in a bit. There we go. Okay, so what you're looking at here is this is your torso, okay? From between your legs and your arms and your neck to your torso. And all of your visceral organs that do things like digestion and respiration, kidneys, are all in there. And it has two sections. It has a thoracic section that has mostly your heart and your lungs. And it has an abdominal area, which is where your digestive organs in your belly, etc. So we're looking at the abdominal region of this fetal pig. Way up there, like way up there on the ceiling, up in the rafters, is where the pig's head would be. The pig's tail is down here, where the little camera shot sign is. And so we're looking at the abdominal area. Does that make sense? We kind of get our context. Excellent. So let's look here. I'm going to try to get some more light on the situation. And so what do we think this big organ, and I'm going to pull it out a little bit here. is, it's not the heart. Who said liver? Nice, it is, it's the liver. So let's look on our sheet for a second. What do you think the liver is, now that we've talked about context, on your sheet? Raise your hand who feels like they know. There's gonna be a lot of hand raising, and then if you have questions, just raise your hand. Red shirt, what do you think? What did you say? Did you say S? I thought you said S. Did you say S? Okay, how about you say OT? How about you say S anyway? Excellent, that is so right. That is totally your liver. The S is the liver, and it's big, right? It's huge. On me, my liver would be like here. It goes on, it's all the way up by the ribs. These are the ribs, and all the way back to the back. It is a huge organ, and your liver does all the things. It filters your blood. It filters the food that comes from your stomach and your intestines, really your intestines. It makes digestive enzymes. It regulates your blood sugar. It gets toxins out. It is like really important. And the thing about your liver is that it's also really forgiving. So if you damage it, it will grow back and it will fix itself for a very long time. The other fun thing that it can do is that you can give a part of your liver to someone else. And if you give it to them, it will grow in their body and your liver will grow back. So the most liver transplants that happen now are live donor transplants. Yeah, what's up? If that is the case, it happens on a very little scale. So by maybe a couple percents. Okay. Yeah, a little bit, maybe. I've not heard that, but now I'm gonna look it up. Cool. All right, so we found the liver. What else do you think we should, so let's say the liver is part of the digestive system, which it is in part. What else should we look for in our abdominal cavity? Yeah. Let's look for the stomach. All right, cool. So here's my liver, right? We're gonna look underneath. And this floppy sac right here is the stomach. And it seems like it's kind of delicate because it's really thin, but really it's tough. It's made out of a lot of different layers of muscle. Look at how far it goes back, because you know what pigs do? Pig out. Yeah. But you know what? This pig, there's nothing in here, right? It's floppy. Why? Yeah. Right, there's not a whole lot of eating going on before you're born. It's one of the privileges of being a pig in the world is that you get to pig out. So this whole part here is the stomach. And one of the reasons that we use pigs for education is because their organs are very much like ours in their abdomen. So they're about the same size and they're in the same locations with a few exceptions. And I will tell you those when we get to them. And actually, the first porcine, so pig to human heart transplant just happened with a transgenic pig, which means that the pig had human surface protein. So that's kind of fun. So maybe when you guys are old and need heart transplants, you'll be getting them from pigs, which would be really useful. All right, so let's keep digging under the stomach because the stomach has some friends over here. Oh, what letter do we think the stomach is on our sheet? Yeah, red sweatshirt. I totally agree. L is definitely the stomach. Cool. All right, so let's look next to the stomach over here. I lost my tools. And next to the stomach is this big, long, kind of looks like a big tongue, right? But it's not. What do you think that is? Any good guesses? Yeah. Nope. Yeah. It is not the diaphragm. What do you think? It is the spleen. Well done. It is the spleen. The spleen is letter K. S-P-L-E-E-N. Oh, see, now we're up. Usually this is also a spelling bee for me, so fun. So the spleen, S-P-L-E-E-N, is here, and it plays a role in your immune system, but it is also there, and it recycles red blood cells, parts of the red blood cell. And it has a lot of blood to it that goes to it. It's also sort of the ribs end here. So if you're in a contact sport, sometimes your spleen can get damaged and cause bleeding internally. So some people actually live their lives without a spleen. So it's not like super duper necessary, but it's helpful. So let's look around because there's a really important digestive organ under the spleen. All right, can you guys see? Oh, I gotta get my hand out of the way. See this fluffy globular organ here? What do we think? Anyone have a good guess about what that is? Pink shirt, what do you think? No. What do you think? Yep, you. Yeah. Nope. It's fluffy, it's small. It makes insulin. Oh yeah, what do you think, Pink Sweatshirt? Redeem yourself. Yeah. It is, it's the pancreas. And there's not a letter for the pancreas on your worksheet, but it's a really important organ. It makes some digestive enzymes, but it also regulates your blood sugar. So if you're a type 1 diabetic, this organ does not make insulin anymore. And so you need to inject that and supplement it or get it through your insulin pump. All right. So, and there's not a letter for it. So it's just not, it's hidden. All right. So let's look back here though, while we're down in here. And someone talked about the kidney earlier. And this guy here is the kidney of the pig. Your kidney is a little bit smaller and shaped differently. Kidneys in different kinds of animals are really different from each other. But this one, it does the same thing that all the kidneys do. You have two of them. There's one on this side, and then it's harder to see. This one's underneath all the membrane. I took the membrane off the other one earlier. This one's under all this membrane, and it will make urine, right? So you don't have a kidney on your diagram because there's other organs in front of it, but you do have a urinary bladder, right? And the urinary bladder on yours is letter N because, let's put our pig back, letter N, nope, is the bladder, the urinary bladder. Because if we look at our pig, let's just put our pig back together again a little bit. So this is the umbilical cord of the pig. This is a boy pig. And so this is where they have an internal penis. So not the same, but they have this internal penis, but they do urinate from sort of where their belly button is. So cool. So that's where the urinary bladder, it makes sense that it's right here, but with the way you're looking at it, it's pulled down like that. So you can see the other organs. All right. So we get food, and as do the pigs. If you're starting in the stomach, what comes after the stomach? Yeah. The what? Maybe not the large intestine, but the small intestine, right? So in this pig, this is the small intestine. Doesn't look small at all, right? It's pretty big. It's super long. Look at how long it starts here at the stomach, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And the reason that there's so much of it is because it's what absorbs the nutrients from your food. So the stomach really doesn't absorb any nutrients from your food. It's really all happens in the small intestines. And so the intestine part, it's called small because see the size of the tube here? that's going to be smaller than the large intestines that I'm going to show you in a second. So this part here. And then there are all these blood vessels here because that's how you get the nutrients. The nutrients come out from the intestines, and the parts that you want go to these are blood vessels, and then they go up and the liver filters out anything that was absorbed but that might be toxic to you. So sometimes if you get poisoning, your liver fails. Okay, so you absorb, keep going, absorb more. And then after the small intestines, which on yours is letter R, small intestines is letter R. On the left-hand side under S, looks kind of like some romaine lettuce. Noodles. But the ones that look like big noodles here are the large intestines. Yeah, and so for you, letter M, like mom, is the large intestines. Letter M. And so this large intestines here is really different from ours. Who draw in the air what you think so if your small intestines look like this, right? What do you think your large intestines look like? Yeah, those of you who made us kind of a square in the little whoop, you're right. It's kind of like a weird question mark. So yours go up one side of your abdomen, across your abdomen, down your abdomen, and then down into your rectum. And so that's exactly not what the pig has. The pig has all these small intestines or large intestines. They're stuck together with membrane. We could separate them out, but they'd probably rupture. And then there would be yucky stuff in there, and we don't need that. But it does the same thing. So most of the nutrients get processed and absorbed in the small intestines. That's why they're so long, because you want to get everything out of your food that you can. But some of it can't be digested, and that goes to the large intestine. And the large intestine is mostly there to absorb water. You perhaps know that if you have diarrhea, right? Because that's yucky, ew, right? Ew. You are in danger of being dehydrated. That is because you are losing a lot of water in your waste. Does that make sense? That's why they say if you're sick, they say drink a lot of water, drink, Pedialyte or Gatorade or something. Something that makes you feel better, and because you need to replenish that water, because there's nothing worse than being both sick and then also dehydrated. So you need to replenish that water. Does that make sense? Okay, so then just like us, pigs make fecal matter, and then when they're done, they store it in their rectum, and this is the pig's rectum. I'll get out of the light. See there? But so, any other questions about our digestive system that we've seen so far? Questions? No? Okay. So I'm gonna take this pig. How much time do I have, fellow teachers? 20 minutes, awesome, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna get a second pig, same orientation, because it's easier for me to show you some of the structure still intact. So now we're looking at the thoracic cavity, and the thoracic cavity is everything above. Let's see. Everything above this really important muscle right here. What do you think that muscle is? Yep. The what? What do you think? The diaphragm. Yes, it's the diaphragm. And the diaphragm, I will spell that for you because it's spelled really funny. It's letter J. And it's actually spelled, it's diaphragm. So it's a D-I-A. P-H-R-A-G-M, diaphragm. Is that wild? And the diaphragm is your breathing muscle. So what happens is you take a breath, the diaphragm pulls down, and the lungs that are here fill with air. Have you ever had the wind knocked out of you? Yeah, right? How does that feel? The worst, right. And it's the worst because what you do when you get the wind knocked out of you is you always have some air in your lungs. And when you get the wind knocked out of you because you fall off the monkey bars and you have too much pressure, it knocks that little bit of extra, it's called your reserve volume, out of your lungs. What happens is that your lungs have to passively fill up with enough air to replace that before your diaphragm will start working again. So you're using your diaphragm, you're breathing, you're trying to breathe, but nothing's happening, right? It's so scary. First time it happens to you, you're like, oh, this is the end of me, right? But it's not. So you know a little kid who hasn't had the wind knocked out of them yet, tell them. I told I have 3 daughters, and I told them when they were little, like, someday this is going to happen to you. You're not going to die. It's going to take 20 seconds. It's going to be the worst thing ever, but then you'll breathe again. So if you know a little person, share that information with them. It's good information to have. You will not die when you get the wind knocked out of you. So let's see here. What do we think these floppy things here on the sides are? Sure. They're the lungs, and these lungs are not as exciting as the lungs that you would see. I get lungs for my senior anatomy students, and we inflate them. And they were lungs that had been in pigs the day before. And then I go get them for my friends at the slaughterhouse. So who asked if I think this is weird? Someone was like, do you think this is weird? And people who have friends at the slaughterhouse are the kind of people who also dissect fetal pigs. So we inflate their lungs, and they're like, it's like a balloon, but that doesn't describe, it's like a million little balloons, and they inflate and they're full of air, and they're like light pink and fluffy, and they're really cool. But these lungs are floppy little nothings, right? Why? Oh, tie-dye over there. Precisely, this pig never breathed, so in the first breath that an animal takes outside, like in the womb, they practice, they use their diaphragm, and they breathe in and out the amniotic fluid that they're floating around in, but then they come out and they like up all the amniotic fluid, and then they start breathing. Some of the amniotic fluid actually gets absorbed into the lungs and helps them develop, and the lungs are one of the last organs that develop. So these ones are really, this pig was when piglets are born for real, they're really big, like bigger than you. Bigger than a human baby for sure. So this one is very small, and the lungs are the last thing they form, but they're definitely not ready to breathe. So in a living organism, you would actually have to move those lungs aside because the air in there, and if you were doing like a heart transplant, you would have to put the animal on, or you person, on a heart and lung machine, so the lungs don't have to fill up with air all the way, so you could even get to the heart because they're so robust. They take up so much space in here. So these are our lungs. What letters do we think the lungs are on our diagram? Yeah, that's not true. What do you think? T and, what do I see? G? Yeah, T and G for sure. Good job. And what do we think is in between our lungs? Yeah, what do you think? The heart. So yeah, this is, it is H and I. Yep. So this is the heart, and this is the heart. There are 4 chambers on a heart, and I'm actually going to, I have a sheet part that I'm going to show you. So this is just like if I took that little heart out and we looked at it, it would look just like this. It has two really big parts to it. And this is just about the size that a human heart would be. I'll hold it up so you can see it in perspective. Yeah, like a potato. And it has its heart, and you can see the blood vessels here. They're dyed with a polymer because they take all the blood out because that would be yucky. And then it has these two really muscly parts called ventricles. And this ventricle would pump blood out to the lungs where it would get oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. And then this, it would come back to the heart. It would go in these little chambers up here called the atria. They're blue because they put this, so when they take the blood out, they put blue and pink like polymer, it's kind of like latex, and they pump it in the place of the blood. And they pump in pink where the oxygenated blood would be, and blue where the deoxygenated blood would be. And it helps you if you're doing this for school, it helps you know what you're looking at. So you're like, oh, this one's a vein, it should have blue polymer in it when you cut it open. And if you cut it open and it has blue in it, you did a good job. Everybody likes the little academic clap, clap, clap. Yes, very good. So there's a lot of, what do you think this white stuff is? You're gonna scream. It's fat. Your heart has a whole bunch of cardiac fat on it. It is totally normal and it is totally healthy. Your heart has fat on it. I mean, it shouldn't have a ton of fat, but this is definitely a reasonable amount of fat, healthy amount of fat on the heart. It's there for insulation. It's there to, your heart beats all the time. It's in a sac called the pericardium, but it's doing that so it doesn't like have a lot of friction and cook itself, and the fat helps that to protect the muscle. So this part here is the muscle. I have a heart model, a human heart model. Model part was important. And I'm going to pass, you guys can pass this around. You can look inside. You can see that it has valves and cool things like that. Who can catch? You can catch? Yeah. Nice. My dad was a PE teacher, so I'm going to get throwing. So look at it and pass it around. Okay, so let's go back to our pig. Take the heart back. Okay, so here's our heart. And then up here are two really important tubes. This tube here, see how it has little rings on it and it's really sturdy? Pull it out. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of like a segmented worm. It's actually very much like a segmented worm. It has these cartilage rings around it, and the cartilage rings are there to keep it open because this is your breathing tube. It's called your trachea. And on yours, it's letter D. It's kind of hidden behind the thymus. It's your trachea, T-R-A-C-H-E-A, trachea. And it's your breathing tube. And up here is, this one is letter V. And this big box here, you have one. Put your fingers on your throat. Make gently. Okay, make some noise. Yeah. What does it do? It vibrates. That's your larynx. It's your voice box. You want me to spell larynx? Letter V. L-A-R-V. There you do. Oh, you don't have V? V like violin, thank you. V like violin is the trachea. It's T-R-A-C-H-E-A, trachea. What is what? That is what the voice box is. The voice box is your larynx. Did I spell trachea? Yeah. Sorry, you guys. Sorry. V is your larynx in your voice box. It is LARYNX. Sorry. Larynx. Okay. So let's go back to this. So this is the oinking part of the pig. This is the breathing part of the pig. Behind it is a muscular tube. And this one isn't in your diagram, so I won't have to spell it for you, but it is the esophagus. And the esophagus brings food from the mouth where the pig eats, down the esophagus to the back behind the heart. The trachea is going to split into bronchi. If you've ever had bronchitis, that's where that comes from, inflammation of the bronchi, and then to the lungs. But the esophagus keeps going behind the heart and down to the stomach, behind the liver, which you can kind of see peeking out down here, and then into the stomach, which is way down here. That's a kind of a long trip. Does anyone have questions about like the digestive system? Okay, so I brought some other stuff. You want to see a brain? It is a human brain. Okay, so this is a human brain. It's an adult human brain. It is a section. So I did not bring a whole brain model, but if it was in my head, it would be pretty much here. Okay, and it is sliced and it's put in plexiglass, so I'm not touching it. It's nice and safe in here. And I'm going to show it to you and look at the different parts of the brain. Do you have a question? When you're an anatomy teacher, you get catalogs full of dead things. No, I didn't. I don't know how to use plexiglass, so I don't know how to make plexiglass work. So that would be a really hard thing to do. So let's look at these different parts of your brain. So you have kind of like 3 big parts of your brain. Everybody has a brain. Yeah, you do. All right, in this space here, this is your brain stem. And your brainstem does like super important things like breathing and heartbeats and making sure that your hormones work properly and that you do all the living, staying alive stuff is here. For my teachers, you guys won't get this, but in anatomy, my students are old enough that we call this the Bee Gees part of your brain because you're staying alive. Or if you watch The Office. So this is the staying alive part of your brain. This part back here that looks kind of like a little tree, that's the cerebellum. And your cerebellum is like right at the base of your skull. And it is there for coordination, motor coordination. So think about if you picked up your water bottle and took a drink of it. You do that pretty confidently, probably several times a day without smashing yourself in the teeth. Oftentimes without pouring it down your shirt, at least from personal, yeah, it's often. Can make some caveats for that. But think about the number of muscles that takes. It takes lots of different muscles. You use your mouth, you use your arm, and do you think about it? You do not. And really you do it without mishap most of the time. And that is all of that information on how to make those things happen is stored in the cerebellum. People who have problems with their cerebellum have problems with balance, with walking, and with generally speaking, moving about in the world, because that's what that part of your brain does. And then all of this roughly stuff up here is your cerebrum. And that is what you guys have a lot more of than, say, a dog or a cat. They have a much smaller cerebrum. And when you say like a cat is smarter than a chicken, it's because you looked at a cat brain and you looked at a chicken brain, and the cat had way more cerebrum, way less than we have, but way more than a chicken. So a chicken is an animal of instinct and does not do a lot of thinking, heavy thoughts. However, your cat thinks about how best to knock things off the counter and how best to, yeah, absolutely. Cats think about how to, destroy your home while you're home or not home all the time. So they need more cerebrum to make that happen. And then we have one more part of our brain. This here, this little swoopy part, is called the limbic system. And that's like your ancient lizard, like fight or flight part of your brain. This is the part that even if you are, like say you're, I don't know, a gazelle, and you went to drink at the water hole last year, and you saw your buddy Sven next to you get his head chopped off by a crocodile, you're like, you might not remember all that, and you might not feel sad about Sven, but you might be, when you get to the watering hole, be like, ooh, I got some bad feels about this place. I'm gonna let, Hazel go first. Hazel, have a drink, see how it feels, And because this part, this limbic system is really internalized that, ooh, water hole, you need that water, but let somebody else go first. It's a little scary. That's that ancient part of your brain that does that sort of fear and anger, all those really primitive emotions are tied up in here with, funny enough, your sense of smell. That's why sometimes sense of smell triggers like really deep emotions. What? All right. So I think we're gonna, do you want to do the, yeah, okay. So I'm gonna take the pigs and put them on the front of the stage. And I'm gonna put I have like a big cow femur if you want to see that. And you guys can walk by and look at them if you want. You can ask individual questions, any of that. So come on, if you don't have to, this is purely voluntary. You can come on up. If you want to come like this way. Yep, come on this way and we can walk across to the exit.